Game of the year. Wow. Just wow.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
I want to apologize right off the bat to our Oregon and Washington fans that are going to be joining us next year. Your game was great. Earlier this season, your game was fantastic, but it wasn't this. It wasn't the game. And when they say the game, I think they really mean the game of the year. This game had absolutely everything. This game had the stakes. This game had the back and forth. It had the offense. It had the defense. It had the passion. It had the energy. It had the crowd. It had the atmosphere. It had every single thing you are looking for in a game of the year, in a game of the century type of showdown. Here's the thing. Before I really get into the X's and O's of this game and really break it down, these are two elite championship, national championship level football teams. If you can't look at this game and figure that out, I don't know what else to tell you. In a 6-point difference, 30 for Michigan, 24 for the Ohio State Buckeyes. These teams were so evenly matched. It was a play here and a play there that really was the difference in this game. But here's the thing about it from the Ohio State point of view. For the Buckeyes, considering everything else that's going on in college football, I've covered that before, I still don't think you're going to need a lot, and I mean a lot of chaos to be able to back your way in as a Big Ten at large into the college football playoff, because I don't think it really matters who wins in the SEC. They're in, whether it's Alabama or whether it's Georgia. Okay, they're going to need Texas to lose. They're going to need Florida State to lose. But in theory, the SEC champion is in. The Big Ten champion, if it's not Iowa, is in if there's no major upset there between the Wolverines and the Hawkeyes. And then the Pac-12 champion is definitely in that game between the Oregon Ducks and the Washington Huskies. So that's 3 teams right off the top there. Maybe they can back into that fourth. Who knows? But you're going to need to see some chaos, I think, on championship weekend for the Buckeyes. But if they do back into that spot, if they do, who knows what can happen, and maybe they could make a run at a national championship. But these two teams, elite college football teams this season in the country. Let's start first with Ohio State. All right, Michigan always seemed to be like a step ahead in this football game. Okay, the interception, the turnover by Kyle McCord was huge. I just knew it. Okay, I knew that this game could go many different ways even after that interception. But when that happened and then Michigan got on the board early, I'm like, you can't give the other team a short field like that in a game of this magnitude. I just knew that that could be a deciding factor in this football game, and that's really exactly what happened. 6-point game, interception, it turns into a touchdown the other way. But you look at that, but Ohio State always seemed to respond. When Michigan was a leg up in this football game, the Buckeyes always seemed to come back. The Buckeyes always seemed to fight back. Kyle McCord has been a gutsy quarterback this season for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Sure, he's been up and down. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster season. Is he the most accurate quarterback in the world? No. Has he been playing better as of late? Yes. Like, we all know the story about Kyle McCord, but after that interception, I thought he played a really, really good game the rest of the way, and he willed Ohio State to make this a game late in this matchup. But they were always there. But the thing is, they were playing a step behind this entire game against Michigan. When you face off against the Michigan Wolverines, you need to be playing from a position of power. Look at that game last year against TCU, where J.J. McCarthy has always got to throw to get kind of back into this football game. You need to get Michigan behind and have them kind of get out of their comfort zone. It was the opposite. When Michigan plays within a position of power, you saw what happened on that last drive where they milked all of that clock. You get back to that 4 and 5 minute offense that Michigan is so good at. The boa constrictor tightens and tightens, and you saw that Ohio State defense get worn down really throughout that final drive. Of course, the field goal, and then the Buckeyes couldn't do anything with it. Man, did they make it really close. They got me on the edge of my seat, standing up just feet away from the television. Once again, another fantastic college football game, no question. It was the college football game of the season. Kyle McCord, certainly not the most prolific quarterback in all of college football, but in a lot of games, like you look back to the Notre Dame game, that drive puts Ohio State in a position to punch the ball in late. Key throws that he made got Ohio State to an undefeated 11-0, got them to this point. And then even in this football game, maybe a little bit of a microcosm of the Ohio State season, he got them to that point. They just came up a little bit short in this game against the Michigan Wolverines, who I believe is just a little bit of a better football team. Let's talk about Michigan in this one. Okay, I said they were always a step ahead in this game, and that's exactly how they wanted to play. I thought Sherrone Moore called a really good game. I thought this was a balanced approach for Michigan. I said coming into this one, I don't think you're going to be able to do what you did against Penn State. Like, you're not going to get in a game where J.J. McCarthy maybe throws it 10 or 11 times and you just run it 30, 40, however many times, and you beat Ohio State that way. I think you needed to come out with a balanced approach. I thought he did a good job mixing run, mixing pass. This was the type of game where Michigan is in control. This is the type of game where Michigan succeeds. And as good as Kyle McCord bounced back, I thought J.J. McCarthy made some big-time throws in this game. I know the stat line is going to maybe lean in favor of the Buckeye quarterback, but J.J. McCarthy as well played a really, really good football game throughout the entirety of this one. Taking care of the football. Maybe that was the difference in this game. I said in my preview, quarterback play was going to determine where this game went. And it was Kyle McCord's improvement at quarterback that brought Ohio State back into this football game. But it was Michigan's steady, clean performance from J.J. McCarthy and him not turning the football over and Michigan winning that battle, and Michigan winning that from that kind of standpoint is what maybe led the Wolverines to a victory in this game. Boy, I talked before about the emotion and the passion and how this game had everything. When you talk about that emotion and you talk about that passion, the injury to Zach Zinter really seemed to flip the game because it was so even. You look at past years in this rivalry where it's close in the first half and then Michigan tightens the grip and sucks the life out of the Buckeyes. Okay, this one was 17-17. I thought Ohio State did a really good job coming out in the second half, holding the Wolverines to a field goal, and holy crap. How about that drive where Lou Holtz was nowhere to be found because they got physical and physical and physical and physical. It was 17-17 in that game where they just jammed it down Michigan's throat. But then the Zach Zinter injury. Boy, did that seem to flip things. It seemed to flip a switch inside the players of the Michigan Wolverines. Because when you're with those guys and these guys inside that locker room every single day and you're fighting and you have a leader like Zach Zinter that goes down, that motivational factor just jumps up to 11, to 12, to 13, to 14, to 15 within those guys. Ensuing play, Blake Corum takes it in for a touchdown, and then that 10-0 spurt, that burst of energy from the Michigan crowd and this Michigan football team where they got the Blake Corum touchdown. They held him, and then they went down, and they got a field goal. Like that burst of energy and that runs in basketball, right? Sometimes we talk about runs. That 10-0 run for the Michigan Wolverines was so huge. Ohio State, once again, we talk about their responses. Once again, we talk about them coming back. The response from that, I thought, was the most impressive response for Ohio State because momentum was huge, walking over to the side of the Ohio State Buckeyes. They could have punched it in for a touchdown there to make it 31-17, but the Buckeyes stopped, and then the Buckeyes scored to keep this one a ball game. I thought was very impressive, but it's also impressive the way Michigan responded from the injury to Zach Zinter throughout this game. Michigan is always going to Michigan. Okay, it is so difficult to play a 60-minute game against this team. It is so difficult to play the entirety of a football game and beat the Michigan Wolverines. They are so tough on the inside. It's so difficult to go the distance against a team like Michigan, play that clean game, make all of the plays, especially when you're playing from behind like Ohio State was in this matchup. It is extremely difficult to go toe-to-toe with the Maize and Blue for that amount of time and make more plays than them, commit less penalties than them, commit less mistakes than them. And it was just those few key plays towards the end of this game that cost the Ohio State Buckeyes. All right, so Michigan punches their ticket to the Big Ten championship game where they are going to be just a little bit of a favorite, you got to think, against the Iowa Hawkeyes. This is a Michigan team that can certainly win a national championship. They've got it at quarterback. Even without Zach Zinter, it's still a really, really good offensive line, one of the best in the country. They still got the run game. Colston Loveland. You talk about tight ends. I talked about tight ends in my preview, and that was key to them. And then this defense. Okay, it's one of, if not the best defense in all of college football. This is a championship-level team. When I look at a team like Michigan, and then in the SEC, the Georgias and the Bamas, I look at those future Big Ten teams out in the Pac-12, this is going to be an extremely competitive college football playoff. And Michigan holds all the cards right now. Michigan holds a great spot to be able to make a run for a national championship. And now they get their head coach back, Jim Harbaugh, for the Big Ten championship game. And then, of course, beyond there with the college football playoff. An impressive showing, a game that will go down in history. All right, I compared it earlier in the week to that 2006 matchup with the buildup, with the stakes, with everything. And boy, did it live up to every single thing, just like that matchup did in 2006. Folks, what a football game. What a football game. I was on the edge of my seat every minute of this one, every second of this one. Our guy Gerald McKinley checking in afternoon. He's been a Michigan fan. He's been around this channel for a while. Thanks, Jared, for chiming in. We've got Michigan fans out here celebrating the win as they are advancing to the Big Ten championship game to take on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, you got that Iowa defense. Here we got an Iowa fan in Charlie Yellowstone. What a name. What a username. Congrats to Michigan from an Iowa fan. Look, Michigan's going to be a big favorite. I thought I saw a line, very early line of 21.5 for the Wolverines over the Iowa Hawkeyes right now. And I agree with that. Remember the last time Michigan and Iowa got together in the Big Ten championship? It was an utter rout. I want to say this as it pertains to this Michigan and Iowa matchup. I feel cheated. I feel cheated a little bit. I'm not going to lie, because beginning of the season, August, you tell me Michigan and Iowa, and I'm like, that's great television, baby. That is great TV, because you got Cade McNamara rematching against his former team. But of course, we know about the injury. Of course, we know about Cade McNamara going down. Of course, he's still probably going to be there rooting on his guys on the sidelines. He's been on the sidelines this whole time for Iowa. But I feel a little bit robbed that we don't get to see that storyline, that we don't get to see that matchup kind of play out right now for the Iowa Hawkeyes. But regardless, it's great to see these two teams play each other, and Cade's going to at least be in the building in Indianapolis. But the TV professional, the former media guy in me really would have loved to see that type of storyline going in to this matchup as well. DC Knoll chiming in. Could there be a more narrative-crushing result than this? OSU was all in on winning this one and being able to proclaim the last 2 years being irrelevant. Now they're just second best. So we've got an FSU fan here in the chat during this show. So there's going to be big questions, folks. There's going to be big questions now surrounding Ryan Day. There's been some steam. There's been some heat. Ryan Day, there was a report earlier this morning from Bruce Feldman. Ryan Day, a wild card for the job in College Station at Texas A&M. Now what happens with Day? Because this is 3 times in a row, and college football is set to change completely, starting next season. The Big Ten is going to change completely. Where do things go from here? I think that's the big time question as we approach this thing right now. That is a huge question that is on the line right now. Ryan Day, what his future, his immediate future is going to be discussed. Is the NFL even a possibility right now for Ryan Day? I don't count anything out right now. But here's the thing. I understand where people are coming from is that he can't get over the hump. He can't win the big one. Maybe because there's a new athletic director also coming into Ohio State. I understand the frustration for Buckeye fans because this is the biggest rivalry in college football. It might be the biggest rivalry in sports. I understand your desire to win this football game, but folks, you got to look at me when I say this. He's one of the best coaches in the game. He's a great recruiter. I understand your frustration. How can he be a great coach when he can't win this game? Michigan is just a little bit better. No, the last couple of years it was more lopsided, but in this one, Michigan is just a little bit better. That's going to be something that I have my eye on in the coming weeks. I'm not even going to say months because I think it's going to be weeks. If Texas A&M wants to move, they're going to be moving tomorrow. They're going to be moving on Monday. They're going to be moving on Tuesday. Because what I saw names like Jeff Traylor and Mike Elko, Chris Kleiman, Lance Leipold, the usual suspects we see for coaching openings these days. But here's the deal. You got to think with those group of names, and then you have Ryan Day as the wild card, you got to think they're going to swing big. They're going to get out the big lumber to try to take a big swing and hit a home run with Ryan Day. If that doesn't work, then they're going to go down to your Klymans, your Leipolds, your Elkos, and guys like that. I can't wait to see how this ends up. What is going to be the reaction from the Buckeye fans right now? That is, and the administration and Ryan Day and everything. I can't wait to see, because this is a team that could very easily go 12-1, not make the college football playoff. Once again, they're going to be ranked in the top 5 at the end of the season. But where is this team going to look? You look at Ohio State going forward. Kyle McCord will be back. What happens? I can't remember the eligibility situation with TreVeyon Henderson. I think he's eligible. Yeah, because he should be a true junior if my memory serves me correct. Marvin Harrison is obviously going to the NFL, but they're loaded at wide receiver. They're going to replace guys, no question about that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Buckeyes kind of adjust here to this sort of thing as well. Our guy Brett W. Byer, he's been talking late. No coach, no signals, no excuses. Michigan is just the better team. Okay, ever since this game. What was the first game after all this signal stuff came down? What was that, Michigan State? If I remember correctly, Maryland was really the only opponent that really pushed back on them. But when I look more at that Maryland game, that was a game where the Terps are a solid team. When Maryland plays good, they're a solid football program. But, and there's always a but that's the thing. They sold out, and I thought Michigan really played well, especially down the stretch in that Maryland game. But this win, like those wins against Penn State, the wins against Ohio State, those are both victories without Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines. And to be able to play like that without your head coach, making those game flow type of decisions, I think is very good. It's very important for the future of this Michigan program, and it really talks about the depth and the culture that's already built in. When you don't have your leader, you can still make it happen with Sharon Moore making those type of game time decisions throughout this one. Here's one, because this is done, we're going to talk about how this was an instant classic, as we should. No doubt about it, we should. Richard, Oregon better. Okay, I'm going to get into a mini tangent here. College football is changing big time. Joel Klatt said it on the broadcast. This could be the very last Michigan-Ohio State game that we see of this type of stakes with a 12-team playoff, no divisions. We could see a rematch the very next week, Michigan and Ohio State, that kind of thing. I'm sure you've heard that before. But here, and we know it's a new changing world of college football. Here's what I want. Because this is the last real, I know we've gotten away from tradition a lot in the last 10 to 15 years. But let's send the Rose Bowl in this era, before we go to a 12-team playoff, send the Rose Bowl out. Big Ten champ versus Pac-12 champ. Michigan against Oregon/Washington. I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser. I think Oregon has been playing a lot better than Washington here down the stretch. And Oregon poses a bigger threat to other teams in the playoff than the Washington Huskies. I'm going to preview that one on the channel next week, because those are two future Big Ten members. So I'm going to break that one down, as well as Michigan and Iowa. But what a game that would be, because this Oregon offensive line is really, really good. This is an Oregon team that's kind of already, Dan Lanning has this team already built with this Big Ten type of mindset. So, yeah, is Oregon better? Boy, I got to maybe dive into the matchups a little bit if that matchup eventually does take place. But wow, would that be a fantastic matchup? Wow, would that be a fantastic college football game? Folks, this was a game that you'll always remember where you were, what you were doing. I was standing, it seemed like 2 feet, 3 feet away from the TV for the entirety of this college football game. Brett Byer, he's a Michigan fan in here. Oregon's good. I would prefer, it'd be nice. It'd be nice, he's saying, not to face them. And it all depends. Like, there's so many things that could happen. SEC championship, Georgia and Bama. I could see that one going either way right now. Pac-12 championship, I could see that one going either way right now. If FSU already, if they lose, then they're definitely out, right? Obviously, they could have a chance to maybe sneak in if they stay undefeated. I was not able to see the result of the Louisville-Kentucky game. I know Kentucky was winning for a while, so that obviously affects things with Louisville. I know that was a very outside chance. What a job Jeff Brom, the former Purdue coach, has done with the Louisville Cardinals this year. But obviously this is a Big Ten centric channel. I would love to see a Big Ten versus Pac-12 in the Rose Bowl. Okay, I want to see that. If we can't get that, if for whatever reason the rankings don't work out that way, let's get a current Big Ten member. In this case, it would be Michigan. And let's get a future Big Ten member, whether it's Oregon or Washington, in the national playoff, the national championship game of the college football playoff. I'm sure the rights holder ESPN would absolutely love that. Attack an Iowa fan here. Iowa is now America's team. Yeah, for those that had kind of been rooting against Michigan this last month or so because of everything going on off the field, people might be rooting for this Iowa Hawkeyes. Those two guys in shirts wearing punts might be showing up and rooting for the Iowa Hawkeyes here right now. Here's Richard chiming in. Okay, to be fair, I don't know if they're actually better, but they are a big and complete team. That is absolutely accurate. I can't wait. Because you look throughout all of college football right now. Of course, this channel is looking at it from the Big Ten perspective. But Georgia can win a championship. Alabama can win a title. Michigan can win a title. Oregon can win a title. Texas, who knows? Like their only loss this year was to a pretty solid Oklahoma team. Maybe Texas. I think I put Texas a notch below those types of teams. But normally in the past, it's maybe 2 or maybe 3 teams that can win a title. This year, I think there's a lot more teams, and I think this last edition of the 14 college football playoff could be maybe its best. Maybe its best. Rick Sanchez out here stating the obvious, but sometimes the obvious needs to be said. Easily game of the year. Easily game of the year, and I definitely agree with that. All right, let's get it from Brett. This is from a Michigan perspective, so you got to take that into consideration. Ryan Day, please stay at Ohio. Please don't go to Texas A&M. Maybe a hint of tongue-in-cheek sarcasm type of stuff there coming from our guy Brett, the Michigan fan here. I'm sure there's more than just a couple Michigan fans watching right now, but you get the general idea, at least as the chat is concerned right now. And I just want to see what happens. Do you get in a situation, if he leaves, there's a huge domino effect right now if Ryan Day leaves and goes to Texas A&M. If that happens, does Ohio State just promote Brian Hartline? I don't know. Is he ready to be a Big Ten coach at that type of level at a program like Ohio State? But then if Ohio State becomes open, now there's other elite coaches that are saying, yeah, I want to be the head coach of the Buckeyes. It completely changes the game. If Ryan Day stays put, then maybe you get your Leipolds, your Klymans, your Alcos, your Jeff Trailers, guys like that are going to be the main topic of discussion as far as the coaching carousel. And I will be talking about probably an uploaded video on Sunday. Going to be talking about Jonathan Smith being the new head coach at Michigan State as well, which dropped during the middle of this game. So, all right, let's get to some more comments here. Gerald McKinley filling me in. Kentucky won over Louisville, so that would be the Cardinals at 10-2. Yeah, so I'm very curious to see how they rate Florida State in this one when all of this is said and done. Jared Jones, Big Ten TED Champions Club member. I appreciate your support throughout everything. Obviously, you look at the avatar, look at the logo. It was very unfortunate. Another heartbreaking loss. And I think this one, what hurts the most? Maybe this one, because it was so close and coming down to the end. And, because these last few games, Michigan really pulled away and established their will late. So, yeah, it should be interesting. Should be interesting to see what happened. A lot of people talking about officiating, a lot of people talking about officials in this game. Yeah, you're going to have missed calls. You're going to have these things. I just want to talk about a couple of points that I didn't talk about in my monologue at the beginning of this live stream. Roman Wilson's catch, that was, I don't necessarily remember early in the game, would that make it 14-3? I don't think that was, it didn't seem to me, at least, like he had control of that ball. That's the way, it never seemed like he had full control. That being said, there was a lot of reviews throughout this game that I believe were just too close to call, that were just too close to overturn. It was extremely, extremely difficult to be able to do that. Extremely difficult to overturn multiple calls in this game via the review. But that was one. I thought they got the call right late, right where the receiver caught it, took a few steps, and then the fumble that was eventually recovered by Ohio State. I thought that call was correct. Refs, they're going to miss calls. They're Big Ten refs after all. But overall, I thought nothing was egregious, I thought, from stripes in this football game. I thought nothing was that far where it's like, oh my gosh, how can you call that? All right, let's get back to Gerald here. This is an interesting one, Ohio State call Urban back? Because remember, Urban Meyer became the head coach in 2013. Remember, there was that interim year before that with Luke Fickell. Before that, it was the tattoo stuff with Jim Tressel. This is interesting. Even if it's just in a transitional period, even say, Urban, hey, can we get you for 2 years? Can we get you for 3 years? Try to bring in an assistant that you feel kind of like Ryan Day and groom him for the head coaching position. Maybe that's something that could be talked about in Columbus, Ohio as well. It would not be surprising to me if the first call the new athletic director makes is to Urban Meyer, is to try to patch that hole with someone familiar that they know that they can keep up this type of double-digit win standard at Ohio State in the new age of college football. And does Urban Meyer want to be at that point? He's approaching 60 years old. Not sure when his birthday is, but I think if he hasn't gotten there already, That's going to be a very interesting discussion as we proceed through this as well. Rich T chiming in, he'd be crushed if Texas A&M takes Ryan Day. If there's one thing that Texas A&M has, it's money. It's money. If Ryan Day is just saying, man, I can't beat Michigan, there's just a lot of pressure to win one football game here, and I can get paid X amount of million more at Texas A&M. I can play in the SEC. I'm in the hotbed of all hotbeds in recruiting down there in Texas, near the between Houston and Dallas. Maybe that's something that Ryan Day feels. But here's the thing that's going to happen. Okay, you're feeling a lot of pressure to win this game, to win Michigan and Ohio State. There's going to be a lot of pressure in the SEC. Now that this Texas and Texas A&M, I think that rivalry is going to be more heated than it's ever been. There's going to be a lot of pressure in College Station to beat the boys from Burnt Orange in Austin. Look up the lyrics to the Texas A&M fight song. It's all about Texas, even in their fight song. So there's going to be a lot of pressure now that those two teams are conference members and are going to be probably playing that Thanksgiving weekend game once again. All right, thanks everybody for joining the live stream here today. Very much appreciate everybody for jumping in here. I'm going to try to pull up the box score here and kind of break down this box score just a little bit. But before we get to that, if it is your first time dropping by, subscribing is a great way to see notified when live streams like this and videos drop. Here, going to be previewing Michigan, Iowa, Oregon, and Washington here a little bit later as well. If you want to support the channel, clicking the join button, give you some extra perks here on this channel as a member of this channel as well. Fantastic football game between the Michigan Wolverines and the Ohio State Buckeyes as I'm getting ready to pull up this box score here right now to kind of break down this game statistically just a little bit. And what a ball game it was. What a ball game this was between the Michigan Wolverines and the Ohio State Buckeyes. All right, let's dive into it here a little bit. There you see the box score. Blake Corum, 22 carries, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. Michigan rushed for 156 yards in this game as a whole. Let's look at the quarterbacks for a minute. J.J. McCarthy, 16 of 20, 148, and a score. I thought he was efficient. I thought he was good. All right, he was good enough to win this game. Like, you throw 16 completions and 4 incompletions. Yeah, you're doing all right. You look at Kyle McCord in this game. 18 of 30, 271, 2 scores and 2 picks. Of course, the first pick happened early, and then the second pick happened late where he tried to make a throw. Michigan just got enough pressure to be able to get in there to make the play there late in this ball game. I'm going to adjust these chats here so people can actually see them and so people can see what's going on here. There we go. All right, let's go more into this box score here right now. Trevion Henderson in this game. You look at 19 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. This is a Ohio State. You look at the balance right there. 28 carries for the Buckeyes, 30 passes for Ohio State as well. Now you look on the other side here at Michigan, 21 passes, including that was a big pass right there, Donovan Edwards. 21 passes, 39 rushes. I thought both teams were really good in terms of their balance, and no team really went one way or the other, and I thought that was a key for both teams to really come out on the winning end of this one as well. But just a solid day for both teams in terms of the balance of this team. Look at this right here. Marvin Harrison Jr. on the left side of your screen. 5 catches, 118 and a score. I said during my preview, I thought Marvin needed to go for 150, needed to go for 160. Who knows? They go to him late in that game. They complete it. I can't do math in my head, but that might be pretty close to 150, right? If they were kind of around the 30, 35-yard line. Something like that. They mentioned it on the broadcast. They did not target Marvin Harrison Jr. as much as they probably should have down the stretch. All right, I think in the third quarter, I could be wrong on this. The third quarter, they only targeted him like one time or something. You got to give a lot of credit, though. You got to give credit to Michigan in how they covered early in this one. I thought, like early in this game, you could see Kyle was a little bit out of sorts, a little bit out of rhythm. I thought Michigan did a really good job in their coverage. Of course, that Will Johnson interception that set up the first touchdown of this football game. But I thought they did a really good job considering what Ohio State was and considering what Ohio State really wanted to do throughout this entire football game. Both teams played an excellent defensive football game. Excellent defensive college football game. Marcus Aurelius Maximus chiming in here. Rushing yards per attempt, that's as close as it gets. Michigan with 3.8 with Ohio State. You know, and those are pretty decent averages considering that these are two of the best defenses in all of college football. I thought this was really well done, I think, from both sides on defense specifically, and both offenses kept it going kind of in the run game as this game went along. Greg Schulte kind of chiming in as well. Oregon looks a lot like Michigan. They do. I think Oregon's got a better quarterback, though. I think Bo Nix right now, if I'm voting on Heisman, I am a voter and I am submitting my ballot, I'm voting for Bo Nix. I'm voting for Bo Nix. He's been better down the stretch than Michael Penix. I thought about Michael Penix was probably my pick after Washington beat Oregon earlier in the year. But I think Bo Nix has been much better. He's been lighting it up a lot more. I get Jaden Daniels. I get it. Did they lose to Texas A&M? I know they were down, so that might kind of hurt them. That might hurt Jaden Daniels' odds for the Heisman Trophy. But I thought Bo Nix was better down the stretch. Right now, he's my vote. Bo Nix is my vote. Considering the way Oregon has played, considering his performance down the stretch, I think Bo Nix is probably my vote for the most outstanding player in college football right now. Yeah, it's a shame Bo Nix will not play in the Big Ten, but what a journey it's been for Bo, right? Starting at Auburn, that didn't work out. He wasn't great, right? He was a pretty highly sought-after recruit, and then going to Oregon just completely changed his career, completely changed his life. Let's call it as it is. A lot of these transfers, Michael Penix going from Indiana to Washington, Bo Nix going from Auburn to Oregon. These are life-changing decisions. Made a lot more money than he would have staying and playing at that Auburn program right now. All right, so these are kind of how this is how this game kind of broke down statistically. I thought that when they put in Alex Orji at quarterback, I thought that was a very good wrinkle. I thought that was a very interesting wrinkle. 2 carries for 22 yards at that point in the football game. A pretty clean game on all fronts. Of course, that last interception by Kyle McCord is him trying to make a play, got pressure right in his face, so you can't blame him too much for what happened over there. So there's that as well. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Big Ten live, and I pushed one button too much. Here we go. Old Sarge, Pottery and Music, Go Blue chiming in. So Michigan set to take on the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Big Ten championship game. If you guys are interested, I can open up the phone lines here so you can call in and we can talk about everything Michigan and Ohio State throughout this game. Just got to get this set up. I will put the number on the screen here in just a minute. So if you just give me time on that, we'll get right to it if I can get these headphones turned on as well. But in the meantime, what another fantastic football game that we've seen. Michigan, the victors, 30-24 over Ohio State. Of course, the big deciding factor in this game. I thought when Michigan had the ball, 5 or 6 minutes left in this ball game, the way they kind of drove down the field and made it happen, I thought was typical Michigan football, right? Where they just have the ball in their hands and they just go all the way down the field and they make it happen and they get into the end zone. It was that Michigan where they play with the lead, they control the line of scrimmage, and they just run it down their throat. Mark Smith chiming in, thinking Iowa doesn't really stand a chance. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me per se to see Iowa play a little bit closer, right? That defense is really good, but this is not a Iowa team. Let's call it as it is. This is not a Hawkeye team that I don't think can last 4 quarters with a team like Michigan, because not a lot of teams in college football can last 4 quarters with Michigan. I mean, you look at that offense. Is it going to be like a couple of years back, right, with Spencer Petras in the 2021 Big Ten championship? It wouldn't surprise me. Like, say Iowa scored 3 points. I think it was 42-3 was the final score in the 2021 Big Ten championship game. I could see something like a 3. Say Iowa gets 3 on the board, and they get a fumble or an interception, and they gain a couple of yards and kick a field goal, and then 13-3, 17-3, something like that at halftime. I could possibly see that possibly going down with this team, but I don't know much more than that as well. Going to try to jump around here and get to some comments, but Michigan 30, Ohio State 24, the final score in this football game, as this likely wraps up Ohio State's chances to get into the college football playoff. I put that comment up just now, and I kind of skipped over it a little bit here from Greg. Ryan Day's not going to Texas A&M. Not going to Texas A&M. According to Greg here, these next few days are going to tell a lot to see what happens for the Michigan Wolverines going forward. Or for the Ohio State Buckeyes, sorry. The Ohio State Buckeyes and the future of their program going forward. What's going to happen? What's going to happen at Ohio State? It's going to be very interesting to see how this whole thing breaks down. Michigan, no question, is going to be a huge favorite. I read on Twitter just before I came on here, it looks like they're opening up at a 21.5-point favorite against the Iowa Hawkeyes. And we know there's such a huge favorite in that game against Iowa. Like, that's obvious. Okay? I want to look at Michigan. And here's how I'm kind of viewing Michigan the rest of the way. I want to view them from a standpoint of how do they stack up against the Bamas? How do they stack up against the Georgias? How do they stack up against the Oregons, the Washingtons? Teams like that are going to be in the college football playoff. Because I think we all know, you could be the biggest Iowa fan of the world. You could bleed black and gold. I think you gotta know what's kind of in store next Saturday at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. But you kind of look forward at this thing. Oregon could be a really tough matchup, especially for that Michigan defense, especially for that secondary. Troy Franklin and Tez Johnson are really good in the secondary. Bo Nix, at least in my opinion, is the Heisman Trophy winner. Who provides the toughest matchup? I think those two SEC teams provide some difficult matchups. Oregon is a difficult matchup. Like, this thing is far from guaranteed. Of course, for the Michigan Wolverines, everybody came back to win a national title, but this might be, some of these other years, this might be one of the most difficult roads throughout the semifinals and the finals throughout this whole thing. And Screenwriting Scribe kind of agrees with me. He bleeds black and gold. He ain't stopping Michigan. Yeah, I agree with that. But here's the thing. You look at this from an Iowa point of view, you got to be proud of the way this team has battled through. 10-2. I could have very well seen 10-2 at the beginning of the season. But the way things went with the quarterback injury, with the 2 tight ends injury, with everything that happened, for them to still accomplish 10-2, and one of those 2, Kirk Ferentz talked about it in his post-game press conference, one of those 2 was debatable, okay, in that loss to Minnesota, the 12-10 loss to the Gophers on that fair catch that was called, and then, of course, the punt return that was called back. If not for that, they might have been 11-1. But you got to give credit to Iowa. They've done a tremendous job fighting and keep on winning and winning and winning and winning their way. What a job by Michigan. Here's some more analytics. Here's some more stats from our guy, MAM. Rushing yards, Michigan. Okay, they've been talking about it all week. 20-some-odd times, the team in this game that rushes for more yards wins the football game. And Michigan did enough to rush for enough yards to win this football game. There you look at it, 156 to 107 in favor of the Wolverines on the ground. I want to talk about this when Zach Zinter also went out. I think another thing that's worth talking about and another thing that's worth debating is I don't think this offensive line missed a beat. They moved Carson Barnhart to the inside of that Wolverine offensive line, and they plugged someone in his spot, and look what happened. In the fourth quarter with 5 or 6 minutes remaining, boom, 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 they just punched it down Ohio State's throat. You can see the Buckeyes were they were a little tired at that point. Okay, there were two sides to this whole Lou Holtz type of thing as this game went along. That drive in the second half, the first drive in the second half where Ohio State punched it down Michigan's throat, they were physical, no doubt about it. But then at the end, right, the boa constrictor eventually. Michigan is just so good at grinding teams down and wearing them down. That drive that ended up in a field goal. It took so much time off the clock. If they could have made a stop with 2 minutes left, with 3 minutes left, we could be talking about a different result. We could be talking. There's so many little things in a game like this. There's so many little things that come out and that are differences in a football game. That's why I believe, like, if Ohio State could somehow make it into the college football playoff, this could be a team that could do some damage. I'm not saying they'd win it all. Definitely, I'm not saying that because I already said with Michigan, this is a very challenging route, even for the Wolverines, to win the national championship this season. But if Ohio State could somehow sneak in, I believe the scenario for that, Texas would have to lose the Big 12 championship game. Florida State would definitely have to lose down the stretch here. I don't think it. Probably Bama would have to lose. Georgia would have to win because that prevents the possibility of two SEC teams as well. And it doesn't matter what happens in the Pac. And then maybe Ohio State slides into that number 4. Say Georgia was 1, Michigan was 2, the Pac-12 champ with 3, and Ohio State was 4, with Texas at 2 losses, Florida State with a loss as well, Alabama with 2 losses. That could be a scenario. So right now, Ohio State going to be rooting against Texas, and they're going to be rooting against Florida State. There could still be a scenario, unless I'm missing something, but I think there could still be a scenario for the Buckeyes to possibly get in to the college football playoff. But obviously that's not the way you want this thing to happen. That's not the way you want this thing to happen. Obviously, kind of coming down the stretch here. Great win. Great win for Michigan. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in the college football playoff. Of course, Jim Harbaugh is going to be back on the sidelines in the Big Ten championship game against the Iowa Hawkeyes. And then we'll see what happens in the college football playoff. I'm excited to see the matchups. What do I think is going to happen in the college football, or in terms of the top 4 at the end of the year? Right now, what I believe is going to happen, I think Georgia wins out. They're number 1. Michigan is number 2. I think those two I feel very confident with. Well, once you get to 3, once you get to 4, I think things get a little bit more tricky. They get a little bit more tricky. So Florida State, I believe, is going to play Louisville in the ACC championship game because they've done away with divisions this season. If Louisville wins that one, they lost to Kentucky. So if Louisville wins, that's a 2-loss. What do I think is going to happen? I think that's a tough game. It's going to be in an odd spot if Florida State ends up undefeated, but they're without their great quarterback and Jordan Travis. Be very curious how the committee treats them right now. Say a one-loss Oregon Pac champion versus Florida State. I think you got to go Oregon. Even you leave an undefeated ACC champ Florida State out of the playoff. It's going to be weird, but it very well could happen when all is said and done. With this college football playoff as well. Thanks everybody for tuning into the channel. Big Ten Ted, if it's your first time here coming by after this big Michigan-Ohio State game, got Big Ten content on the channel every single week, most times every single day. So if you hit subscribe, you get that stuff each and every single day. It's going to be fun to see all of this play out throughout everything as we continue to get closer to the Big Ten championship, as we continue to get closer down the stretch. Charlie Yellowstone, Coach Day is a really good coach. Ohio State wouldn't be the smartest people in the world to let him go. So yeah, that's interesting, because is Ryan Day going to give, like, say he gets a huge money offer where he can be one of, if not the highest paid head coach in college football by the Aggies of Texas A&M. All right, is he going to just go, or is he going to give Ohio State a chance to match that offer? That's going to be also something that is very interesting about this. And is Ohio State, if he does get an offer from Texas A&M, are they just going to let him walk? And is the new AD going to start fresh with a head coach of his own? Because if you can't reel in Urban Meyer and you can't kind of bring him back even in a transitional period, who's next for Ohio State? Who's next for the Buckeyes? Boy, is that going to be interesting. You can see a lot of turnover. Like in the Big Ten next season, we know it's going to look a lot different. Jim Harbaugh could go to the NFL. Ryan Day could go to the A&M. Heck, Ryan Day could maybe go to the NFL. That could possibly happen. But what's going to happen next? You could say Ohio State, new coach. Michigan, a new coach. We saw Jonathan Smith got hired by Michigan State today. He's the now former Oregon State head coach. You're going to see a lot of these next few weeks, then with the transfer portal opening up here in less than 2 weeks. You're going to see a lot of movement. You're going to see a lot of coaches are going to be moving. Everybody's going to be moving. There's going to be a lot of everybody moving around college football right now. A lot of people moving around. Ain't no doubt about that. Thanks everybody for tuning in here to the live stream here this afternoon. I want to thank everybody for watching. It is Michigan with the win over Ohio State in this game. Michigan Big Ten East champions. They will play the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Big Ten championship game. So until next time, we've got a lot of interesting content coming up this week on the channel. Until next time, I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one. Blue Michigan is advancing to the Big Ten championship game in an instant classic over the Buckeyes of Ohio State.